Hey gamers, today we're diving into 15 games that aren't just great, they're hiding some bizarre secrets and unconventional playstyles. Let's get weird. The Witcher 3 ever tried playing Geralt as a pacifist herbalist? It's surprisingly viable and adds a whole new layer to monster knowledge. Instead of slaying beasts, you're studying them, collecting herbs, and brewing potions. You'll need to rely heavily on Axii to calm monsters and Quen for protection. This playstyle reveals hidden depths in the game's ecosystem and monster behavior. You might discover that some monsters aren't inherently aggressive, but are reacting to environmental changes or human encroachment. It's like being a medieval Steve Irwin in a world of fantasy creatures. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Did you know there's an entire subculture dedicated to shield surfing across Hyrule? Some players have mapped out intercontinental routes, timing their trips with the game's dynamic weather system. They've discovered that certain shields have better friction coefficients on different terrains. There are even unofficial shield surfing races where players compete for the fastest times between landmarks. It's turned the game into a weird hybrid of The Legend of Zelda and Cool Borders. Red Dead Redemption 2 try role-playing as a wildlife photographer. The game's ecosystem is so detailed, you could make a coffee table book. Players have discovered unique animal behaviors that only occur at specific times or under certain conditions. For example, there's a rare instance where you can witness a pack of wolves adopting a lone coyote pup. Some players have even managed to photograph the legendary animals without hunting them, creating beautiful in-game nature documentaries. A Plague Tale series, these games have an oddly accurate depiction of medieval rat behavior. Some players use it as a study aid for history class. The game's representation of how the plague spread, the societal impact, and the misconceptions about disease in that era are surprisingly educational. There's even a group of history teachers who use gameplay footage to illustrate lessons about the Black Death. Final Fantasy VII Remake. There's a theory that the entire game is just a fever dream Cloud has while in a Mako coma. Look for the clues. Players have pointed out inconsistencies in the world, strange shifts in character behavior, and surreal elements that might support this theory. For example, the whispers could represent Cloud's subconscious trying to keep the dream on track with his memories. It adds a whole new layer of interpretation to every scene. Deus Ex Human Revolution try a no augmentations run. It's brutally hard, but gives you a new perspective on the game's themes of transhumanism. You'll need to rely on stealth, environmental hazards, and creative problem-solving. This playstyle really emphasizes the divide between augmented and non-augmented individuals in the game world. You'll feel the struggle of trying to compete in a world that's leaving you behind technologically. Shadow of the Colossus. Some players believe each Colossus represents a stage of grief. Play through with this mindset for a mind-bending experience. The first Colossus could represent denial, with its relatively easy defeat lulling you into a false sense of security. The final Colossus might represent acceptance, as you come to terms with the magnitude of your actions. This interpretation adds a deep psychological layer to an already emotionally charged game. Mass Effect Legendary Edition ever tried making the worst possible choices? It creates a hilariously dark alternate storyline. You can end up with a galaxy where almost everyone hates Shepard, most of your crew is dead, and Earth is woefully unprepared for the Reaper invasion. It's like creating the darkest timeline in a sci-fi epic. Bioshock. There's a challenge run where players only use plasmids and environmental hazards. It turns the game into a weird puzzle shooter hybrid. You'll need to be creative with how you use the environment to defeat enemies. For example, luring splicers into water to electrocute them, or using telekinesis to hurl explosive barrels. It's like playing a twisted version of Home Alone in Rapture. Elden Ring. Some players roleplay as NPCs, setting up shop in random locations and waiting for other players to find them. They'll create backstories for their characters, offer cryptic advice, and sometimes even set up mini-quests for other players. It's like adding a layer of improv theater to the already rich world of the lands between. Resident Evil 4 Remake. Try speedrunning while only walking backwards. It's become an actual category in the speedrunning community. Players have to rely on sound cues and memorization to navigate environments and dodge enemies. It turns the game into a bizarre test of spatial awareness and backwards combat skills. Baldur's Gate 3 attempt an all torches run. Use only torches as weapons for a surprisingly effective and hilarious playthrough. You'll need to rely heavily on your party members and creative use of spells to supplement your fiery arsenal. It's like playing a fantasy version of a Looney Tunes cartoon. The Last of Us. There's a subgroup of players who treat the game like a mushroom foraging simulator, cataloging all the fungal growths. They've created detailed maps of where different cordyceps growths can be found, theorizing about how the infection spreads and evolves. It's turned a horror survival game into a weirdly educational experience about mycology. Persona 5. Try maxing out your relationship with every vending machine instead of people. It's oddly satisfying and changes the game's rhythm. You'll spend your time hunting down every vending machine in Tokyo, trying every drink combination. Some players have even created elaborate headcanons about the personalities of different vending machines based on their locations and drink selections. God of War 2018. Play the game as if Kratos is actually a terrible father who's constantly misinterpreting parenting books. It adds a layer of dark comedy to the serious tone. Imagine Kratos trying to apply timeout techniques to Baldur. or attempting to use I statements during intense god battles. It turns the game into a weird parody of modern parenting applied to mythological figures. These unconventional approaches show how deep and flexible these games really are. They're not just masterpieces of design, they're sandboxes for our weirdest gaming impulses. Whether you're turning Geralt into a monster-whispering pacifist or Kratos into a bumbling dad, these games offer endless possibilities for creative play. Have you tried any of these strange playstyles? Or do you have your own weird way of approaching these games? Let me know in the comments. Remember, gaming isn't just about following the main quest. Sometimes the real fun comes from pushing the boundaries of what's possible. So get out there and get weird with your gameplay. Until next time, keep those pixels peculiar.